Just computer. Okay. Jess, before you start, Maggie, do you feel comfortable giving just a little hello and what some of your background is? Because you're on mute right now. Okay, do that. And if not, we'll go back to Jess. Okay. Maggie, I'm not sure if you can hear us, but I'm going to go ahead and move on to Jess so she can uh, start and finish her thought. Okay, Jess.
Um, so somebody new to this, who has no frame of reference, no starting point, whatever, um, they are usually staggered by the price of it, right? Like we know the work that goes into it, the time, the energy, the money. So I think it's important to lay down that groundwork of expectation, because I, believe it or not, have had people come to me who I thought, were serious potential clients. And they, I said, "What's your budget for the project?" And they said, $50. And I said, "Oh, $50 PFH?" And they were like, "No, $50." I said, "Well, I'm sorry, that's not realistic." And they said, "Well, yeah, have you ever heard of Fiverr?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, you have good luck with that. I probably think you're gonna get what you pay for,
Hmm.
with that, but best of luck." So I think that's the place to start, is start managing expectations right from the beginning.
And so when you ask somebody what their budget is, um, do you also review what the expectations are for that budget so that they know, so what comes to mind for both you and Emma for that and Elias as well?
Anybody else want to jump in? Or I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
I send a quote. So that's something I've recently started doing, and I think it helps to manage expectations and to actually see something that looks like an invoice, but is not an invoice, but
mm-hmm.
could potentially be an invoice, down the line. I think that, if somebody's going to get cold feet, Emma and I were talking about this morning. If somebody's going to get cold feet, I want to know as soon as possible, so I don't invest more resources in them.
So for you and for those in the production side of things, what, for lack of a better word, what line items would there be on your estimate?
That's kind of what I was going to say. Like, I think the
Yeah.
most important thing in general is educating authors about what
Mm-hmm.
actually goes into an audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the disconnect is. Because
Mm-hmm.
when you hear things like 250 PFH, which you'll hear thrown around all the time, it's a very
Mm-hmm.
common number you'll hear. That has a lot of sticker shock to it. Understandably, that can be really expensive. But once you understand what all goes into an audiobook, that really helps to understand where that 250 is going, or whatever
Mm-hmm.
that PFH is. And so I think both me, Jess, and I'm sure Elias can also speak what all goes into creating an audiobook, which is a lot more than a narrator sitting in a room reading a book.
Right. And there are some other videos and lives in the group under guides that we have talked about. Some were just lives, Facebook lives, and a couple of Zooms where we talk in depth about, excuse me, the per finished hour rate and what really, because if I was an author and I was looking to do an audio book that was 5 hours and I was told that it was going to be $250 per, finished hour for 5 hours, I would probably have to take a breath, But from our end, and we're learning, that it's way more than 5 hours, and so the invoicing for the narrator, per hour drops significantly, So, when you divide that by maybe anywhere from 3 to 5 hours per hour of production time, then we start getting into like the $30 to $50 an hour
Mhm.
rate. So that's important to know as well. So, but anything else along that line?
Yeah, you will have to, I agree totally what Emma said, and Jess, of course. Emma put it nicely that we have to, like, new authors that want to do an audiobook, they're shopping around, they want to find more information about it, because a lot of authors, they will just come to the mind, oh, I want to make an audiobook. How do I go about this? How do I start? What's the cost? So they will start contacting people, and most times they probably won't know what's included, not in the price, but what the process of production and producing an audiobook is. The preparation for the narrator, the times it takes for practicing some characters, maybe going through the manuscript, then recording, then doing again some recordings, then there is the editing and post-production, then there's mixing and mastering. So
You're stressing me out, Elias.
Yeah. So this is something that an author won't have to worry about, because the narrator / producer will do that, but the author will have to understand the process so he can accept the price in his mind and see this is how it is. Mm-hmm. And I think that we always have to explain to them what's involved, and then they take it easier. And if they're serious about it, they will do it, or they will come back another time and do it. Mm-hmm. But just like Emma said, you need to explain to them everything that's in it, because most of them, they won't know. They're not narrators and not producers. They just have an idea of making an audiobook out of their book, which is a great idea, of course, because everyone's doing it now, but they don't understand what's behind it. And of course, they contact people like me, Emma, or Jess, or other producers and narrators, and they will find out. If the narrator does not explain that, the author won't go. He will just get scared and just forget about it.
You bring up a good point. Oh, yes, please.
Okay, I paid for 2 books, one about 10 years ago, and I went through ACX, and I had no control over what they sold the book for.
Right.
It could be $20 or 99 cents.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it was really frustrating trying to make the money back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Doing marketing and all of that back then.
Yeah, because Amazon Audible is the seller, so they decide what they're going to sell it for. Mm-hmm. You're just giving them your audiobook for them to sell, and they say, I sell it at that price, and you can't have a say. Yeah.
Isn't it based on length now too? So
somewhat, it's like still a bit arbitrary.
Yeah, if it's 3 hours, it's this much. If it's 10 hours, it's this much, and so on.
That's just starting, but yeah, they change
like
that price all the time. They'll put it on sale, they'll put it up, they'll change it however they want to change it. And one thing with going wide, and I personally love going wide.
Now explain that.
Going wide. So not being exclusive to Audible. Yeah. So you're going to go to like 50 plus other what's the word?
Retailers and libraries.
Retailers.
Wow, it's been a long morning. Retailers. So you can get it all over the place. Like as a listener, personally, I love the app Chirp. That's what I listen to most of my audiobooks on. I use Audible still, but Chirp is where I get most of my books from. And so it's different retailers and different platforms that you can go to. And some of those platforms you can set the price on. So depending on what aggregator you're using or what distribution company you're using, you can set the prices there. And so but yes, Audible, you can't choose, and they will change the price on their own whim.
So is that then, in the eyes of the production houses, a benefit perhaps to choosing a publication house who can better manage the distribution? So the three of you that are in publishing, a lot of us get started on ACX, and I'm still on ACX. The goal is to eventually, it gives you a start,
wrong
right?
With it, yeah.
But hopefully, for those of you that are publishing and you're working with the author then, again, I'm not on the author side. I'm still understanding, some of this journey, but you work with them to help get the distribution beyond what ACX and Audible can do. Yeah. So am I on the right track?
Yeah,
is that part of your contract?
I personally like to recommend wide. I think there's a lot more opportunities there. But if an author wants to stay exclusive to Audible, there's nothing wrong with that either. Mm-hmm. That is where you will get the most amount of royalties from Audible. And Audible is the biggest company out there for audiobooks. And so there are more people on it. And so if you want the most royalties out of Audible, go exclusive. It's fine. Mm-hmm. But if you want to be able to go to as many places as possible, including libraries, wide is the option to go.
Emma, you're taking the words right out of my mouth. I actually want to point out, so it's been found that new listeners, as far as new to a particular author, so listeners are more likely to take a chance on a new to them author through a library app. So if you're looking to reach new listeners, not your existing fan base, the fact that somewhere like Findaway can get you into libraries via like Overdrive and Hoopla, that's a big perk. Like that's really appealing.
I just learned about Overdrive from a class I was in with my fellow audio actors now, and I was online looking at it and, kind of trying to grasp what it was about. So I'm actually going to reach out to my local library by phone, because we're so local, just to see what I can do, for my books, and see if I'm on the right track going through them, Overdrive for that. That's kind of interesting. So.
Yeah, if they were done through ACX won't deliver to libraries.
Oh,
so
okay.
that's part of that. So that's
good to know.
the benefit of going wide, is that you can get into libraries
Oh,
at that point. ACX Audible likes to keep everything for themselves. So.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, that was when they first started off. But then after that, so many years after, there's all the other retailers and libraries. So the audiobook market is still growing, and it will be growing. And there's more retailers popping up all the time.
Yes.
All the time. So like Emma said, Chirp. People are really going towards Chirp. There's no subscription fees on that. And they do give offers on specific audiobooks. So you can find them at the lowest price on the market on Chirp for a limited time, of course. But a lot of people are going to Chirp. There's audiobooks.com. There's so many retailers and the libraries, Hoopla, Overdrive. So that's going wide. That's what going wide means. I also recommend wide. Of course, to the clients, you will explain everything how it is. But I recommend going wide because lately we've seen sales of audiobooks more on other platforms rather than on Audible. I think it does depend on the genre also.
Yes.
I've seen that. So for 2 years, no sales on Audible or Amazon, but they've made sales on audiobooks.com or on Chirp and Kobo also. And that I'm following that to see how it's going, because it did catch my attention. So I'm very curious to see why and how that's happening. The main reason is because it's not just Audible anymore.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
And as on the rights holder side of things, places like Chirp do give you higher royalties as well. So that's also something to consider as you are budgeting audiobook. Going wide.
Can you, excuse me. Hi, Maggie, could you mute, please? Or I guess maybe I can do it here. Let's try that. There we go. Okay, I think that's it.
Can I ask Judy, as an author, have you gone wide with any of yours, or have you considered it?
Yeah, I had originally signed with ACX in my first audio. I paid somebody, I knew a production company, and paid an actress and all of that. And that was the only game in town. And it was a 7-year exclusive. When my 7 years was up about a year ago, or, I didn't know that I could take it away from them. I did. And so it's wide now. And
Wonderful.
another audiobook through Findaway Voice last year, a year ago, January, and went, with them. And they do a lot of, libraries get that. But it's still very frustrating as an author when you have to put all your resources into promoting your book, and yet the most expensive thing is having the audio. And everybody's doing audios, and it's expensive. And my marketing coach told me not to do an audio unless I'm going to do all 5 books audio, and it's because I'm doing a series.
Sure.
Don't want to get hooked listening to one and then find out you can't listen to the next.
Yeah, it's unfortunate as a reader when that happens, but we're also used to it as listeners. Like, it happens. It's it's not the end of the world. And if they're hooked enough, they'll pick up the ebook if you can't get it in audio. But
And
series are great.
It's funny you should mention that.
you can take them one at a time, do one now, and the next year do the second one. And if you are going to do it, because there's also the pros and the cons, right? So if you do volume 1 of a series and people really like it, they will anticipate for the second one. So regarding sales, if you do a bit of marketing, you say part 2, volume 2 is coming next May or next June or sometime after a year, and that will help you also budget easier and gather the funds to do it. And so there's the pros and the cons. I wanted to mention that of doing them all together at once or keep the audience waiting. It's just like the movies, all right? When we see Lord of the Rings 1 and then there's 2 after a year or 2 or something. I mean, that can happen also with audiobooks.
It's funny you should mention that because I'm working with a lovely, lovely young author now who has a series of 6 books. And budget-wise, she and her husband just were going to together try one, see how it panned out. So 1 is done. And I'm in number 2 now. So that's as far as we've taken it. So we haven't really discussed. I'm hoping, that the rest will come through. But she did what Elias mentioned in that she did some promotion after the first one was out, coming soon. Once we booked it, it'll be coming out this summer. And so I think that'll probably be her method of doing that, which I think has worked really well. She had also asked me about, because in the book, she has a couple of prequel, I guess, maybe chapters for the next book, and asked me if I could add that into the audio. And so when I did some research, what I found was that the narrators and authors really didn't support that, because what if, for some reason, the same narrator wasn't available? And so then you've got that sample, that audio sample in the audiobook, and you're promoting the next book when possibly that narrator, may not be available. That was one reason. And then 2, if it is a per finished hour or a plus, then it's adding more time onto them. It's ultimately going to cost them a little bit more because it's making the audio longer, not by significant amounts, but
Yeah,
I
I think that's a completely personal preference of what the author wants, because I've had it in books and sometimes I love it and sometimes I'm like, I'm not really interested, at this point. And so I think it's just a personal preference, and it's never fun to listen to a series when the narrator switches, but it happens, and we're used to it. It happens, and it's like you said, sometimes that narrator's just not available anymore, or their budget changes, or
it's like when they switched Darren's on Bewitched. Now that was a bad thing.
We never like it, but it does happen.
That's right. So. Have to get used to it.
I will say though, if the switch is done well, you can definitely minimize the damage. I can't think of the name of the woman who took over for Katherine Kellgren with her Royal Spinous series from Rhys Bowen. But she has just done a phenomenal job. I honestly can't find a complaint with her performance or with how that transition was handled. So it can be done well. Yeah.
I will say, as a narrator, if there are any narrators watching this, and just good to know for authors, don't take a book 3 or 4 on a royalty share if you're the new narrator. Books, other subsequent books and series always sell less than the first one. It's just kind of a fact there. And if you're going to do a royalty share contract, which there is merit to royalty share, I'm not going to knock on royalty share entirely, but there's pros and cons there too. I would be wary of picking up a book 3 or book 4 at royalty share if you're a new narrator to the series.
And that's a great note for the author too, because a lot of times we will do, perhaps a royalty share as an introduction to each other. Like you say, you might do 1 or 2, but then, it will, I would think, behoove the author to budget for one of the paid options moving forward. Even if it's 6 months out or whatever, and you're booking the person, get them blocked in on your schedule and theirs, to make it work.
I think that's worth talking about too, since we're talking about budgeting for audiobooks, helping authors understand the different agreements that are out there. So there's royalty share, there's royalty hybrid or royalty plus, there's different names for it. And then there's the per finished hour. And there are pros and cons to each one of these, both on the narrator side and the author side. And so there is no one right answer to any of them. It depends on your book. It depends on the situation. There are some narrators out there who prefer PFH, per finished hour, because we hire out editors and proofers and all of this stuff, and there takes a lot of time. But at the end of the day, there's also some out there who will make more on a royalty share than they ever would on the PFH because it's sold really well. And similar with authors, they would rather do a PFH because they know that their book is going to sell really well in royalties, and they want to keep all those royalties. And so there's pros and cons, and you have to weigh them all.
Yeah, so if we agree to, as a narrator, per finished hour, then we're basically giving up the royalties on our end. So the author keeps that, they do a flat fee with us, and then we go on our merry way and, on to the next project. And then the hybrid or the plus is, part payment, part royalties, which I think can be the best of both worlds in many ways. And then the royalty share. So that is a percentage, and unless it's a book that's really, really, really going to sell well, there's not, at least on ACX, there's not a lot of money involved with the royalties.
It's unlikely any books posted on ACX will make big bucks on royalty share. It's just kind of a fact.
So I'll be totally, I was going to say transparent. I made $16 in royalties in March for hours and hours and hours of work. So it's kind of sometimes a little stab to the gut on that. So, but they're good stories. I love doing them, and but
I think go ahead.
One of the things, I understand all the work that you put into it. I don't have any objection to that. But as authors, we can spend years writing our books. Yeah. And we don't get $20 an hour, back on that. And so it's really hard to balance all the costs, the cost for marketing.
Yes.
And that's, in addition to
that's one thing that I get a lot is authors ask, well, why can't you just get royalties on it like I do? Because that's what I'm getting. And I understand where that's coming from. But what's really important, I think, for authors to understand is that audiobook narrators are a service, just like your editor is a service provider, just like your cover artist is a service provider. That's exactly what we are. So if you bundle us into those service providers for your book, your editing, your line editing, your proof editing, your copy editing, your cover art, that audiobook narrators go under that as well. And you're not going to share your royalties with your editor. You're not going to share your royalties with your cover artist. That's typically not how that works.
And it's tax deductible. Don't forget that.
It's an expense.
Yes.
Yeah, but when it comes to, if you're going to do an agreement, either you're a narrator or an author for royalty share or split royalty and all that, a good thing to take into consideration is the marketing. So basically, when you're doing a hybrid or a royalty share or something, you're becoming a partner, right? So you're partnering, you're a narrator, you're becoming a partner with the author, or the author's becoming a partner with you. So for a narrator, it has to work on his side that, we know who's going to deal and how much it's going to go through marketing and all that. So it does work fine for the narrator to put the work and then say, okay, we'll do a royalty share on that. We'll do something like that. And also the same goes with the author, right? So the author will say, you know what, I don't have the budget to do this per finished hour, but would you like to do royalties, right? The narrator should ask, okay, how are you planning on to promote this? And maybe we can do some promoting together or something. So it shouldn't be 1, 2, 3, that's it. What I like to do, what we like to do is we should like to be, so what would you like to do? Let's see how this can be done and do some customized things with each author, because everyone has different budgets, different needs. So you would say, okay, you want to do royalty split? Okay, let's split also the marketing. We're going to do this and this, because you're becoming a partner, and that involves more things. When you're doing per finished hour, okay, the author might pay more. He keeps 100% of the sales of the royalties, but he will do the marketing also himself. If it's going to be with a narrator, then you're partnering with more different things and it's more ongoing, right? Depending on how long the royalty share is going to last. Could be forever, could be for some years. So being a partner with the author is what is actually really the royalty share. I just wanted to put that in too.
That's a good way to put it.
That's
Yeah.
a great. I'm watching the time here, Emma, so I'll
Yeah,
I
I've got
understand
it.
if you have to bow out. But yeah, when I first got into it, and I come from a background of a lot of promotions, so it's not second nature for me to be active in that. But when I first got into it, and again, based on ACX's information, it was, the author does the promotion, the narrator is really not responsible for that. But, as Elias says, it's a partnership. And I do ask, if it's a royalty share, I do ask the author, how are you going to market this? Because I heavily promote my own. And I've had a few experiences where there was no marketing at all. And probably the sales of that particular or two particular books was because of what I put out there. But, I do email marketing, I do social media, so I'm not afraid of that. I'm not, but I also know that we're not all born marketers and promoters. It's something that we've either learned or done in past years. So I'm totally open to working with the authors and making sure the word gets out. So,
Pam, I think you and I talked about this at APAC because we provide a certain amount of promotional support as part of the production process. I think we're sort of unique in that way. And that's why a lot of narrators feel more secure in taking royalty share projects if they know it's going through us.
absolutely.
We handle a lot of the heavy lifting that would otherwise, not just be on the shoulders of the narrator, but the author as well. So you've got this third party in there promoting with you. And my background's in audiobook promotion as well. So
it's like
it's
another
gotta be
cushion for us. It's just, it helps us. Yeah, for sure. I like that. So yeah, Jess and I met at APAC in March. She had her own little room it was Audiobook Empire.
That's right.
Okay. And that's where I connected with Emma earlier, but we met up again at APAC. And so if you're not in that's the Audio Publishers Association. I highly recommend it. Awesome. And just before we go, I'm trying to find out if it's going to be in person or virtual next year. Has anybody heard yet?
No, we won't know yet.
Not till summertime.
They won't announce it yet. Yeah.
So then so we've kind of covered the budget for narrators and some other line items. What about a cover? Are the authors going to be using their original cover to their book and the artwork? Are you guys going to create as production houses? Are you going to help create a new, fresh look? Because there's another video in our group about, does the cover catch our eye as narrators? Right. So it's important to have that kind of like sophisticated,
Jess
cover.
is a perfect person to hop on this question. I got to run. I got another.
Thank you, Emma. Appreciate you being here.
Seeing everybody.
Take care.
So, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. We all know, being in this industry, we know what bull that is. Whether you should or shouldn't doesn't matter. People do, right? Covers are important. The two biggest pillars the two biggest things that you need to have an audiobook sell is a good cover and a good narrator. So to answer your question, the audiobook cover is generally adapted from the book cover. So if you're still in touch with your original cover artist, which hopefully you are, and you're on good terms with them, shoot them an email, say, hey, I'm doing an audiobook. Can you convert this for me? Any cover designer worth their salt should already know the specs for a cover. Don't try to, please don't try to convert it yourself, because it does have to meet certain standards. And the retail sites that you're sending this to, the distribution platforms you're sending this to, will check that. And if your cover is not the right resolution or whatever, they're going to kick it back to you. And then that's just adding more time onto your timeline. So yeah, just get in touch with your cover designer, ask them to adapt it for you. If you aren't in touch with your cover designer, if they are unreachable or you're on bad terms with them, they're booked up, whatever, I personally keep a list of reliable cover artists on hand, and it shouldn't cost too much, just to adapt a cover. I'd say I know a couple that would do it for like $40 or $50. So yeah, you can just pick one at random or ask me or somebody else for a referral. And
Sometimes they also redesign them. So it's not very often when they are redesigned, because it's, for example, you're going on Amazon Audible, right? It's in the same product page. But often, not often, but sometimes authors will decide to redesign, or publishers do that too. It's not very often. If they want to redesign, I mean, it's your decision again, right? You don't have to redesign the cover. It's just taking like to look a lot like the original you already have for the other versions of the book, or like Jess said, it's that same cover converted to the square and the requirements that it has to be for audiobooks. Yeah.
Interesting. So what else is outside of your package deal of your editing, proofing, narrator, and book covers now? Anything else that the authors should be like ready to talk to before your quote goes out, I guess, before your estimate goes out?
Basically, I think authors, when they're deciding to make an audiobook, there's a lot of things that can be done, right? There can be one narrator, there can be multiple narrators, which does affect the price, of course. Then there can be sound effects and music and all that. It's not very often, but it does happen. We do that a lot because we're audio producers by profession. But so the cost will also come down to the length, the price that the narrator / producer will have per finished hour or royalty share. Then you would have, like I said, narrators, the length course, right? So we have a narrator at $250 per final hour. Then it depends on the length, how long the audiobook is. You multiply that by the per finished hour rate. Then if it's a multi-narrator, it's adjusted depending on the company or who's producing it. Other companies do include backing music, sound effects, or music in the opening credits. That's also something to consider. Some companies do adjust the cover image and everything. Then some companies also do promotion. Jess has done that too, so that's also added. So there's things to think about and to choose from, right? So you don't have to take the whole package if you don't want to. You can say, I want this, this, and this. And you just think about what your budget is and how that can be adjusted to a good quality and audiobook with a great narrator. Because that's most of all, when audience listen to it on Audible or anywhere and they write a review, they're not going to comment about the cover a lot, or they're not going to comment about the trailer they saw. They're going to comment and rate based on the narrator and the story. Those are the two top things that they will review on. So the most important thing is that the audience will love listening to your audiobook. Both the story and the voice and the quality matters. You don't want to have backing noise or S's and lip smacks and mouth and uncontrolled breaths and all that. So that affects the listening experience. Then after you produce that, it's very important to consider doing marketing. Marketing doesn't have to come the next day, right? Or the same day. You can save up for marketing after 6 months or 3 months, because your audiobook is done, it's produced, it's out there forever. Unless you decide to take it down, it'll be there for your children, your grandchildren. They can market it whenever they want to, right? It's just going to be there. You produce it once, and then you can market it whenever you want and forever. It's not something standard that you have to do the next day after you produce the audiobook.
I still throw in my stories on Facebook, books that I did, last year, because you just never know. You're getting some new friends and a new audience, and I'll just throw that in there as well, So a question before we'll wrap up here in a few minutes. If we put some information in the chat, will it carry over to the recorded session? Like when I record it and download it, does the chat still show up? Does anybody know?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to ask Jess and Elias to put your contact information in the chat for Judy for future information. Do you want to do that? And Judy, you can grab it if you like, in case we lose it. So she's got some resources, maybe, if you all are agreeable to that. And then I'll send her Emma's. I'll send at some point. If I don't, Judy, ping me, and I'll give you.
It might be easier to do.
Well, I could send it to you. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll try and remember to put it in the post when I put the the link up in the group. I'll try to, I don't know if I have Elias's contact information. So there's
Should
Jess's. Go
I
ahead and
can
put
write it here. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and put in the chat. Jess is pretty easy. Hers is jess@audiobookempire.com.
So I'll just put the website and the information email in.
Jess, do you know Emma's off the top of your head?
Oh, not off the top of my head, but I've got it right here.
Okay, if you don't mind, and that way that they'll all three be together then.
Yeah.
Hers is Cozy something Cats, Cozy Cats Press, something like that. I forget the name of hers.
Official one. Let me. The one I have is her personal. Hold on.
Yeah, I don't think I have her company one.
So I'll put the email and the website address.
Is it in the chat? I don't see it yet.
Oh,
No,
that went to Judy direct message. Let me put it in
Oh,
the
okay,
chat.
okay, cool. That's fine. That's
So I
fine.
put it in the chat.
Yeah, just as a backup,
I'll
if
just
you don't mind.
I'll just
Yeah,
go there.
and then I can maybe do a quick screen. That's what I can do.
Emma does, Judy, just so you know, Emma does, she specializes in clean audiobooks.
Okay, well, I have mystery. I do mystery.
Okay.
I have one book that I need two narrators. I need a male and female because the first half deals with the female and then the second half deals with the male, where there's a lot of court stuff. There's a trial.
Are they considered cozy mysteries, Judy, or are they more of a suspense thriller type?
They're more, it starts out, they have a little paranormal stuff in them. There's a question mark ghost helping, one of the characters, it's her mother after her mother dies, it's kind of there, but I've tried to do some that are based on old myths. I did one about the Selkie and the fisherman, where a gal gets captured by a guy and he thinks she's a Selkie, but she's not. So it's kind of, it's a Beauty and the Beast one.
Oh,
But
cool.
there's a mystery around all of that because the bad guys were chasing her when he got her. So anyway, I do have, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I do have one, like I said, that's half female and half male that I need the narrator because I have a gal who gets raped and he helps her recover. And then when she recovers, he gets arrested for killing the rapist. So then it goes the trial, all of that. And so you don't know. And he was an alcoholic and he had a blackout. So he didn't know if he did it or not. So he's got a lot of internal dialogue, internal struggle and all of that. So his story is just as important as her story is in that one. So I needed to.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you want to send me the information or if you want to post in the group, you're welcome to do that, Judy. If you're looking, it's not necessarily a casting group, but if you've got something that you want to, and the same for the production people that are in there, Jess will have to get you in on the group so you'll be there officially.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Now that you just mentioned the group.
Sure.
So for example, my company, we have over 200 narrators and we do the editing post-production in our studio. But sometimes we want to add a few more narrators or some specific narrator. We can post that in the group if we want. So it's allowed.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I would say if it's for a specific project, I think that might
that's
be.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If we want a
I don't-
specific voice for that, for one project, we can post that.
Yeah, and it'll be kind of like, because this is still a fairly new group, kind of trial and error of what works in the group and what doesn't. But if you've got something specific, I wouldn't just say, oh, we're adding, narrators to the roster. But if you have something specific,
Yeah.
because it is.
Quick question.
Oh, yes, go ahead, Judy.
Okay, I was looking for a male narrator to do just a small clip, it's like 5 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
thought about using for marketing. And he did such a great job, but I can't really, there's a few things, it was just an audition.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I should pay him for the audition, even though I'm not going to use it because he did such a great job, even though it's only 5 minutes. So how do you feel about that because because he was very good at accents because it was like a fishing boat, storm, and he did the different accents of the different characters. He did such a good job, and I feel like I should pay him.
Are you prepared to pay all the other people?
I know, but as I felt guilty
Bless
for
your
not,
heart.
you know.
Well, I would say that's not the norm, but Jess and Elias, I don't know.
Well, that's up to you. I'd say if you feel that you want to do that, normally casting and samples are like 2, 3, 5 minutes are always free, and the narrators know that most times, right? But if you feel it's not the norm, like Pam said, but if you feel you just want to pay him for that, then he will just have to price that, or you want to give him a tip or something, because there is actually no price for 5 minutes of audio because it goes per finished hour or something, or no price for samples, right?
Maybe a little gift card or something.
Yeah,
If you felt compelled, like an Amazon card or a gift card, or I don't know, but
he doesn't expect that. I'm sure he doesn't expect a payment for that, because narrators know I'm auditioning for this. I might not get the gig, or I will get the gig. If I do get the gig, I'll get paid.
Yeah.
Even better, Judy, what's better than money, you think? What you just said about him now makes me want to know his name.
Yes, exactly. A
Tell
testimonial on his website is
Yes.
probably going to be worth gold for him.
Yeah, tell
Yeah.
people about him. That's worth more than a one-time payment.
Great point.
Yeah.
Oh,
Great
you're
point.
all
that's good.
about him. I really do want to know his name. If he impressed you that much, gushing about him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
If he's got a
good one, Jess.
website or social media, and you can email it to him, verbatim, and he can copy and paste it and put it on, that does say a lot. It gives me goosebumps, actually, because it does say a lot, for the narrator. So, well, I tried to keep this to about 45 minutes. Are there any other pressing questions, Judy, from an author standpoint? Do you have anything else that we didn't cover today for you?
I think you did a good job in also introducing people who haven't gone through this before. Like I said, I've gone through it twice. So, I'm kind of aware. I had not shared cost. I, paid for it myself. And I just think that authors need to know that they have to market their audiobook. It's not like you just pay the money to get it recorded. And it's just like beginning authors who put a book on Amazon and expect everybody to find them.
I think that's a great point. And that was the whole purpose of this group starting. Why do I have this little tail up there? Why I wanted to start this group, because with just a year under my belt, going into my second year, I knew what I had to do just voluntarily was to, educate them in messaging back and forth, and kind of keeping track in my mind the questions they were asking. I've gone over this in some of the other videos, so I won't go into it now, but that's why. So if you know of other authors who could benefit from the information here, please, give them the URL to the group so they can request to join. And, that's the purpose of the group. So, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to stop recording here, hopefully, if I can figure out how to do it here. I don't want to end. I just want to stop recording. There we go.